Hey y'all. All right. So now the market just opened. It's Sunday. And I typically don't really trade on Sunday, but I wanted to just kind of go through in real time how I would apply everything that you've learned up to this point. So, like I said, the first thing we're going to do when we get into the market, we're going to go to our day and see what has been the average range that's happening. And so the average range that I see here, I see price came to this point. We're going to make our day blue. And then the highest point that I see that we're averaging is here. And the reason it is because we kind of have a lot more candles capping here, enough to notice. Then I'm gonna go to the 4 hour. And because we have this little box here, we have one, two, three, four, five, six. We have six candles within this box. Then I'm going to range this because, yes, we can say this is the range, but we really want to identify where there's been like a stopping point. And this is enough to notice that at this moment today, this is our current range. So I'm going to put this at the top here and I'm going to do this orange. And then I'm going to put this at the bottom here. Now, you may say, Val, why did you put it here versus putting it at the bottom wick? I only put this here because I do believe that this is significant to note, especially because the day I already had this as a stopping point. I want to put this as a stopping point just as something to note. Like, hey, here's another block where price got here and got pushed up. So because I already have this as my day stop, I kind of want to put this as my forward just so that I can be mindful if price does happen to go in a sell, that this is a stopping point we have here for the 4 hour. And so this is what I chose for my 4 hour. So now let me go see if I see accumulation anywhere. I see a little bit happening in between that 4 hour. Let me go to my 30 minute. Okay. That 30-minute range is marked correctly. Boom. What do we have here? So you see how on the 1 hour we're in range of the 4 hour. 30-minute, we're within range. 15-minute, we have a little stack here. That's something to note. So I'm going to now let me get my box. Looks like we're about to break out of it though, so that's a good sign. Right. I kind of feel like I could have did it here. This is a current box here that's happening. And I'm just going to enter a buy because I think this is accurate. I'm kind of late on it. It's above that point, but I believe this is a solid buy. Now let's measure. Let's see. The 5 minute had that accumulation as well. And if you want to be super safe, you could honestly say, okay, this is what the 5 minute is showing. But I'm going to stick with my first, which at that point, if you were trading in real time, we're up, we're in profit. Now, let's go and just do our measuring. Now that we have identified our ranges, let's go measure and identify what's our trend. Now, what I will say is I believe we're kind of technically on PTOD, but because this 4 hour stopped here and this low chain was higher than this last low, we could be at a pivot point now for price. Price could be at a point where it's about to pivot to the upside. And so, because that looks more of the theory, because this low was higher than the last low, I'm going to say that this is more accurate. So, let's go ahead and do some measuring here. Right. So, we're going to grab our trend line. We're going to measure this to the last. I want to make that a different color. Let's just do purple. Oops. Okay. All right. So we're going to measure that and then we're going to clone this. And then we're going to put that to the top. I'm going to make that, let's do you a green. All right. And then I also now want to go over to my 1 hour just because I don't have enough data here to give me the top point because this is the only green candle I have. I want to go to my 1 hour to see if I have a measure point. Boom, I do have it. So this was the last high over here to this high. So then I'm going to clone that for our next possibility. All right. Okay. And so just keep in mind when you're measuring, you're not measuring for it to be perfect because you won't always get it perfect, especially with like lining it up. You're just building your case the best way you can. And so the 1 hour gave me a lower high here and then it made a higher high. So I'm going to go with my measure for the 1 hour just because my 4 hour, I don't have enough data here to give me the next high. But because we have this higher low here, I'm going to go with the theory that we are about to transition to PTOU. So I'm going to go to this 1 hour, and that 1 hour gave me two high points. So then I'm measuring that to say price is going to go to one of these points here as my top point. Remember, I try to do three, do here in the middle, and I'm going to do one at the end here. Which, what do you know? If it hits that first target, where are we? We're at the tip of the day range. So that's already showing, hey, that's a high probability. We may get there and get stuck. We may get knocked down there. Which, if we do get knocked down there, I don't think that we'll get stuck. I believe we may still push up to this point and then come down and this be the new red low. That's what I believe is going to happen here. And so if you look at our measuring here, that's the possibility we see happening here. That our newest low, and so as you can see, it's kind of wonky because the 4 hour is the measure tool I have here. So you can easily measure it on both sides. So I'm just gonna do it just to show. I'm gonna do this to this red. So either way, we're going to land somewhere over here as our new red point. So meaning this is going to have to happen. We're going to have to push, get a few candles up to this point, and then we may get our red drop to come down to here. So now I just want us to watch it. Let's watch price and see where we land. Now, one other tool that I did give you guys, if you did go into the YouTube section, that was the ATR. So let me do the settings. So we're going to do 50. And then we're going to do another one. And then we're going to make this one 20. That makes this one 20. And then we're going to do one more. Oh, wait. And we're going to do this one to 200. So now that we have our markups, we can kind of see that this is kind of showing that story, which is why I have fell in love with that indicator. I'm typically not an indicator girly, but that's an indicator that I think will kind of help confirm your analysis versus like you just kind of depending fully on it. And I have followed it. It typically is going to hit these first two and sometimes it'll go to that third. But I don't like to depend on that. I like to do my markups and then say, okay, let's see what the ATR is saying. Like, what is it? Is it lining up? And in this case, it is. And so Now that I have my measurements there, I have my green target set in place. Here's what I'm gonna do so my screen doesn't get funky. I did my measure just to get my targets. So here's my scenario of where I think price is gonna go just off of drawing. Now we're gonna go find it on the zones. But I also want to identify where I said that this this low is gonna fall so I don't get confused. So this green goes here. Actually, that was correct. And then now let me put my red tool here, but I'm only gonna do it by the ray. Where is it? Boom. I'm gonna do here because basically this is where my new low should fall in this scenario. So now that I have my markups, there's no need for me to have these lines just so that I can get it out of the way. All right, boom, boom, boom. If you want to keep them there, you can, but it's totally up to you. I'm just moving it so for purposes, for our low here, so I can remember what that red line represents. I'm moving it just so it doesn't overly crowd the screen. I typically will let them stay there just because I don't care. But for visual purposes, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna move it so that I can go do the zones. So now that I have my targets in place, I have this red line. Let's go look at some zones so we can make this even more true. And so to test that, sometimes I'll close this so I don't get confused. So we see here, boom, this is our first zone here. Price gets here and it gets stuck because it's showing us here, 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 here. Price, and we could say this is a target technically here because we see price above this level, it's strong. So we can say this is our first target. So let's unhide it. Boom, that's been a line. That's been a line. So we could say, hey, price may go past this because this is our first. So meaning we have nothing in our way up until this zone here. So we could potentially go further and further and further if we're going off of zones. And we also see over here that anything above that first target, which is that first green line there, it's gonna be hella upside. We see when price get here, boom, we get a lot of push up to the upside. Price get to that target, boom, it's gonna push up strong. Over here, boom, it's pushing up strong. So we see here that there's a lot of potential after that first target. So if this trade gets above that first target, you think I'm gonna be ready to close? Heck no, because I'm back testing here and it's showing me when price gets here, we get a lot of buy momentum here, boom, here, boom. So that's going to further excite me for the trade. So then what I will do, because let's look at some red signs here. Price shows us, let's look for the red moments that, yeah, we'll have momentum, but we're going to have some tough struggle points here. So then I'm going to mark that. That's worth marking. Here, that's gonna become a red. I typically like do pink. So I know that, hey, when we get to this point, even though it's looking nice and green, Val, keep in mind that this is our push point here. Look what happens here. And I can even go further. Boom, here's another push point. Price gets there and has a hard sell-off. I mean, that was a hard sell-off. So it's something to be mindful of. And then over here, price is showing us too that, oh, look, it's our day range. At our day range, price could push down heavy even more. So we get above this day range. Oh, we're holding even more. So that's something to be mindful of there. So now, again, I know it gets crazy on your screen, but I love it because it makes me happy to know that I am in a trade that's planned out. So now we're going to wait to see what happens with this trade. And I'm gonna come back. I'll post part 2.